Universal Upload opens up Skybrowse to virtually any video source. You no longer have to have a drone that supports our Android or iOS app in order to gather video and upload it to Skybrowse for a 3D model. This gives users much more freedom when it comes to what sort of platform they're going to use, whether a drone or a cell phone or a GoPro or any other video source. But in order to get a good model, there are some basic concepts to keep in mind. The most important is quality in equals quality out. When it comes to 3D modeling, that means the resolution of the video, the frames per second, and also what you can see when you are recording your video. Because if you can't see it, you're not going to be able to create a 3D model on it. The most basic flight for Universal Upload is an orbit, and this is where Skybrowse got its start, is a small area orbit for things like traffic collisions or crime scenes. One thing we found is that many of our clients are using this for other use cases, so this really does provide a lot of flexibility. When you're selecting your platform, you want to make sure that your video quality is at least 1080p, and when I say at least, I mean 1080p is going to get you not that great of a model. 4K is better, 6K is even better. You get into 8K and you start having a pretty data-rich video, which is great for a high-quality video, but you're also dealing with a huge file size a lot of times, and that file size can make things difficult for you to upload or to get timely results. So I like 4K or 6K. 6K at 60 frames per second is pretty amazing. The angle that your camera is taking looking at your target is also important. I refer to it here as gimbal angle because most folks are still using a drone for this, but the angle could be the way you're holding your cell phone if you're taking a video on like an object in front of you on a desk, a piece of evidence or something that you want a small 3D model of. Around 45 degrees, give or take, 15, 20 degrees is going to be kind of the sweet spot. If you were to take a video looking directly down at an object, all you're going to really render is the top of that object. If you take a video with just recording the sides of the object, you're going to not get a whole lot of the top of that object. So we kind of split the difference. And if you do find the sweet spot, you're able to get a pretty good 3D model just from a single orbit. As long as you keep recording video, you can do a second orbit at a different angle and at a different altitude, just like our app. Altitude and speed will be dependent on what kind of model you want to get as well, and the size of your subject. If you're recording a piece of evidence on the desk in front of you, you want to move as slow as possible and gather about 1.5 minutes worth of video on one orbit. The more you test out the software, or the more you test out recording video, the more you'll get a feel for how fast, depending on the distance from your subject you are. If you're 300 feet offset from your subject at 150 feet worth of altitude, you're probably going to have that drone moving fairly quickly, like 20 plus kilometers per hour, versus if you're taking a video of your, something on your desk, it's going to be much slower. If you're lucky enough to have an orbit feature built into your drone, you can simply select the object that you want to model, and in your camera view, have your object take up approximately 50% of your viewfinder. Again, this is give and take. It depends if you want more detail of your subject or if you want more context around the object. If you want to get more of the context in the area around the object, simply fly further back away from your object and create more offset. Or like I did here, you can do an offset orbit, and while continuing to record video, adjust closer and come in real tight on your object in order to get some finer detail. You do want your gimbal pointed slightly down the entire time. If you have your gimbal up, it's going to capture too much of the horizon. And if you have mountains, 15 miles away on the horizon, it's going to try to render those too, and that's going to affect your entire model. Once you have your video file, you'll just log into map.skybrowse.com, click Upload, select Universal Upload, name your model, and then select your files. So when you click Browse, you might notice if you've enabled subtitles, you'll have your video file, and then you'll have what is actually your telemetry. So select both of those files, click Upload, so you'll have an MP4 and an SRT, and start uploading your video. So as the video uploads, it'll take a couple minutes to upload, and then once it's done, take a couple minutes to process and come back to your model view, and you should have your 3D model to take a look at. If it doesn't refresh itself, you can always click on refresh and see what your model looks like. If you have any issues, shoot me an email, brian@skybrowse.com or info@skybrowse.com, and we'll help you out.